Well, hi everyone, and welcome to this virtual panel. My name is Dawn Lillington, and I'm the president of the Australian American Chamber of Commerce in San Francisco. I'm thrilled to hear this conversation today in recognition of Women's History Month and the achievements of women who are driving innovation, breaking barriers, and creating meaningful impact across industries. Today's discussion will dive into the challenges women face in leadership, navigating success abroad, and how technology continues to shape opportunities for women. It is a privilege to hear from three inspirational Australian women who have not only excelled in their fields, but have also become champions for change. So let's get started by introducing our remarkable moderator, Helen Fairclough. Take it away, Helen.
Thanks, Dawn. As Dawn mentioned, I'm Helen Fairclough. I'm one of the directors of the board of the Australian American Chamber of Commerce in San Francisco, and I've been given the honour today of taking part in the Women's History Month event on behalf of the AACC. I'd like to start by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land which I live, work and learn on, and acknowledge that I'm hosting today's event from the land of the saltwater Boonwurrung people of the Kulin Nation, whose lands and waters we recognise the significance of. We also acknowledge the ancestral homeland of the Ramaytush Ohlone, the original inhabitants of the San Francisco Peninsula and active community of the Bay Area, and pay our respects to the ancestors, elders and relatives of the Ramaytush community. We pay our respects to their elders past and present and to all First Nations people participating in this event and elders of all First Nations communities and the lands of wherever you may be joining us from today. So just a little bit of background. In recognition of Women's History Month and recent celebrations of the International Women's Day, today we'll be exploring barriers that women face in leadership, challenges in finding success away from home, and the role that technology plays in the advancement of women. And Women's History Month originated in the United States as a week-long celebration in 1982, before expanding to the entire month of March in 1987. And the celebration aims to highlight women's stories that have often been overlooked in traditional historic narratives and to inspire future generations of women leaders. The National Women's History Alliance selects and publishes the yearly theme, and the theme for this year, 2025, is Moving Forward, Women Educating and Inspiring Generations, which is a perfect platform for today's discussion. So before I introduce our rockstar panel, I just wanted to remind you all that there will be a Q&A segment at the end, and if questions pop up to you during this session or something that one of the panellists mentions inspires you, just pop your question into the Teams chat and we'll get to that at the end. And if we don't get through all of them, we'll ensure that we direct you to the relevant person and come back to you with an answer post-session. So let me just start by introducing speakers. And if you have joined us today, if you wouldn't mind just muting until we get to the Q&A segment, that would be very helpful because we've got a little bit of background noise coming through there. So first speaker, we have Neeti Mehta Shukla. Neeti is the co-founder, Chief Social Impact Officer of Automation Anywhere, and the world's leading intelligent automation success platform, delivering AI solutions to transform business processes. She's one of only a few women globally who have founded billion-dollar organisations. A visionary and avid strategist, Neeti brings more than 25 years of technology entrepreneurship, marketing, brand development and CSR experience from a wide variety of industries. She's also a vocal advocate of AI ethics in a world moving decisively toward disruptive technologies. She advocates for purpose-driven organisations and created Automation Anywhere's first social impact office with a goal to pay it forward and touch 100 million humans through its outreach programs. Welcome, Neeti. Next up, we have Naomi Seddon, author, lawyer, advocate, keynote speaker. Naomi Seddon is a partner with the global law firm Littler Mendelsohn and is an author, advocate, public speaker, board member, and about to launch a new gift box business focusing on sending love and a hug to people who are experiencing grief, loss and illness in Australia and the US in May. So we look forward to hearing more about that, Naomi. As a qualified lawyer in 3 countries, including the US, Australia and New Zealand, Naomi is an international lawyer who specialises in assisting companies to take their business global. Naomi's aided over 500 companies with their global expansion plans and has been named one of the top attorneys in the United States for legal advice by Legal 500. Welcome and thanks for joining us today, Naomi. And then last but certainly not least is Dr. Yelda Kaya, doctor, lawyer, global R&D deal maker. I like that line. Yelda is a chief business officer and advisor to several biotechnology companies in the US and UK, positioning innovative early-stage life science companies for growth and funding success. An expat since 2008, Yelda spent 15 years in senior leadership roles in R&D worldwide, business development at multinational pharmaceutical companies like GSK in London and Johnson & Johnson in San Francisco. Leveraging her deep expertise in strategic partnering, Yelda has led, structured, negotiated and executed over 30 global transactions, exceeding $22 billion in total deal value. Wow, what a panel, what a lineup we've got today. So let's get started. I think it's important to recognise that women in the US have made significant strides from increased labour force participation and increased educational attainment. Yet persistent inequalities and challenges remain. So I'd like to start with addressing some of those challenges and how they've manifested in your own careers and what you've done to overcome them. So perhaps who'd like to kick us off and just talk a little bit about some of the challenges that you face? And I suppose we can talk a bit about the stats too before you launch into that. And just for those who don't know, women make up approximately 29% of C-suite positions, and they remain underrepresented at every stage of the corporate pipeline. So if you could share some challenges that you faced in your career and that perhaps you might have seen some differences between Australia and the US, who'd like to start?
I'm happy to jump in here if you like.
Thanks, Naomi.
Yeah, sure. So when I first came to the US, I had no idea that I would end up doing the work that I am now doing around women's health and what ultimately led me to writing my book. But it was really a result of my personal experiences, within the practice of law, essentially. I went through a lot trying to have a family myself. I had over 100 tests. I had 9 surgeries in the space of 2 years, 3 rounds of IVF. I lost 4 babies, 1 at 5 months. And then I ultimately ended up, I'm very blessed. I have twin girls that were born via surrogate, but that was also a very challenging process because they were born at 28 weeks and spent 4 months in the NICU fighting for their lives. So I went through a lot during this process and I learned a lot about women's health issues, navigating a career while trying to manage all of this. And it really is what led me to ultimately advocating for women around health issues in the workplace. And ultimately to writing the book and, sitting on a number of boards, trying to assist companies in this space. I think one of the big problems that we still face as women is that we do have, the statistics show us that almost every woman at some point in their lives will experience health issues related to things like menstruation, pregnancy loss, fertility issues, and then ultimately menopause as well. And because of that, our experiences at work can be challenging and different to those of our male counterparts. And so I really think when we're thinking about the gender equality issue, it would be remiss of us not to take this into account. It's also, so what I'm trying to do through the work that I do and also through, my own lived experiences is show organisations that through small changes and providing support to women in the workplace, it actually has a direct benefit to organisations. We need to break down the stigma associated with some of these health issues and stop thinking about them as weaknesses and issues that are not workplace issues, because unfortunately they are. They impact us in our lives and that ultimately impacts us at work. But there are big and small things that every single organisation, and actually every one of us, can be doing to better support women around some of these issues so that you can continue to succeed at work. I'm a perfect example of that. I'm one of the highest billers in the entire firm, even though on paper, when you look at some of the things that I've gone through, I may seem like, a disaster employee, but I've actually been able to navigate a really successful career. I've written a book. I've sat on 6 company boards. I'm about to launch another business, and I've done all this because of the type of support that I've been provided and the flexibility that I've had within my workplace. As an employment lawyer, I see every day companies do really great things in this space and really poor things. And I think that we still have a very long way to go. And it doesn't have to mean, that expensive things are put in place. Certainly programs, policies like, flexible work arrangements or paid, extra paid parental leave are great, but not every organisation is in a situation where they may be able to do that. And there are small things that really can help. For me, when I lost my baby, one of the things that really helped me was having someone who was monitoring my emails and was directly communicating with clients so that I could still be doing work in the background, but I wasn't having to have that day-to-day interaction with third parties until I was ready to do that. And that was such a small thing, but it was really helpful for me at that time. There are so many things that can be put into place to assist women when they're in this situation to help them continue to succeed at work. It really does start with having more conversations around these types of issues in the workplace and also within our homes.
Thank you so much for sharing, Naomi. I really appreciate your vulnerability and openness, and what a challenging time for you. So great insight and tips, I think, for people. Thank you. Neeti, did you have some?
Sure. I was just going to say, wow, Naomi.
Yeah.
But you got me thinking, and I think one of the things women have to, I guess, take inside and be okay with, especially while working on a career, is it's okay to go outside the box and ask for things that need to be done. You got me thinking, when we started the company, I delivered my first child 3 months after that. Obviously we were self-funded, we were bootstrapped for 13 years. And I would bring the children to work with me. My oldest especially was under the desk in a little bouncer almost pretty much her entire daytime. And these things are okay as long as it works in, of course, the system you're working in. But it's okay to ask for these things because I think a lot of women hesitate to do so. It doesn't mean, to Naomi's point, it's always possible. And we'll find other solutions out of it. But I think that's a very interesting take. I'd like to also answer it from another, your original question, Helen, was, how did you face the challenges in your career? And I think one of the things when I self-reflect, 21 years, 22 years after starting the company, it's that it didn't occur to me that I was a woman. It just didn't attend in my head that, okay, I'm a woman and so it's different. I think a lot of women that I speak to are like that. You can power through what is required without pigeonholing yourself, I guess, as a woman versus a man. And I think part of that is internal and part of that is, yes, external. And of course, we have to work with the external folks to get that validation that women sometimes lack. But at least in my experience, it didn't come into my realm of thought. I think I just wanted to do what I wanted to do, and I wanted to do it the way I wanted to do it. And I think we powered through it, which was, I think, worked in my case, at least.
Yeah, so you think that was, I was going to ask, do you think that was helpful just to be sort of
I think
not
so,
think
because
about?
it didn't hurt. I think if somebody said, "Oh, but she's," what experience do you have, or put you down in a room full of men, it just didn't occur to me that they were doing it because I was a woman. It just
Mm,
occurred to me that they were just rude or not very great at what they were doing. And I think that might have helped, because it didn't I didn't let it bother me or bother what I was doing. And that thick skin, unfortunately, is still needed in some cases. Hopefully that changes, but till it does, don't let it stop you. I think knowing that or allowing that is needed.
mm. Yelda, it sounded like you were nodding and in
Yeah,
agreement there.
I was reflecting prior to in preparation for the panel about the times that I was put down a little bit externally by men in situations, and I mean I'm 30 or how many years into my career, and I guess I rode the wave of med school and then law school. And it was around the time where it became equal. It was 50-50 women and men in med school and then also law school. And so most definitely that critical mass was building of representation of women, but it was very much still male dominated, without a doubt. And I do have several memories of where I was selectively put down as the woman in the room compared to my peers, and it did actually impact me, and it made me more quiet, it made me more shy, it made me less confident but I wanted to do it. So it's kind of like you just sort of plow through it. You keep trying, you keep turning up. And over the years that I have pivoted a bit and adapted, certainly the way I deal with different personalities, and that's actually worked very well in my negotiation career. And now, and also being in the US as well, it's been very helpful to present and accept skills and display skills without being shy or without being, overly debilitatingly humble or self-deprecating. And now when I see and mentor young women who are embarking on their careers or a mid-career or wherever they are, I admire them and their ability to make a go of it and try as well and break through those barriers. But it was definitely a journey. I like being at this end of it where I'm expert and I'm confident and hopefully, supportive of other women to come through and, be similarly successful, more successful. But to my panelist's point, you just keep going, you keep trying and be inspired by other women. That's certainly how I got this far. Initially, it was my mother who inspired me, and then finding those women who have been successful and strong and being able to juggle everything and have an impact on the community and on their careers. It's been a journey for sure.
Yeah, certainly role models think, they often say, what is it? You can't be what you can't see. So important, right, to have those people in your lives. Well, thank you for sharing all those different takes and how you've all approached the challenges. I'm interested about what that means in terms of finding success away from home, given that you're all expats, and perhaps, Neeti, whether you could share some unique challenges you faced building your career in the US, and obviously there's cultural overlays as well because you're Australian, Indian, it's like the layers. So does that add difficulties? Be interested to hear from you about that.
I love it because I can hide behind cultural needs or cultural styles when as I need it. But no, I think I've learned a lot from all the different cultures. And I think that has fed into my management style, my leadership style, my work ethic. And I know it's a little cliche to say it, but every culture has so many great things to offer if you can just tap into that. And that kind of made me who I am today. So I am Indian. There's a big part of my formative years that were in Australia. So I learned a lot from them. And then I learned a lot from the people in the US and the work ethic here, the innovation here, the way they look at innovation. The how shall I say, the freedom to fail really is a cornerstone of the Bay Area where I live, and that's been phenomenal for me to learn from and utilize to grow very quickly. I think the hard work that you're coming out of India in the 1990s, and dating myself a little bit here, definitely brought me a certain level of work ethic that has served me really well. So I think if you can take the positive for a minute, that's great, and I think it makes you a better, stronger leader, person, woman. The challenges on the other side, I think, is you you are also kind of your weakest link sometimes. You can't take away from me, for example. It took me a long time, for example, to come into the US and be very vocal about my specialties or my strengths, right? It's just not in my nature. And then you develop it over time. I think Yelda just mentioned it, that at this end of the spectrum, it feels great. I can do it now. But the challenges do exist. But I think if you, to your point, either learn from other people that you see, and they can be man or woman, and then if you can learn from the environment around you, and kind of tap into that, I think the challenges hopefully are lesser from a cultural perspective. I think being a woman or the only woman in the room is a far, far bigger challenge than the cultural challenges.
Yeah, it's interesting, having lived myself in France, the UK and the US before moving back to Australia. I sort of did the same thing, like, let's take the best that I've seen in all the different cultures and kind of take that to heart and try and, I guess, build on that in terms of the way that I approach different people, and something I think you were talking about, Yelda, in terms of how you adapt to different styles and just picking up those things. So the cultural element for me was more enriching and helpful, and it's interesting to hear you say the same thing. So I don't know if anyone else had any comments on that. I think, Yelda, you mentioned a bit about how I think you can be freer to be more confident in the US. I certainly found that in terms of, blowing your own trumpet a little,
Yeah. So I first went from Australia to the UK, and that was a definitely different business culture. I'd come from a law firm where we were working really hard and then playing very hard. And I moved into a corporate role where it was quite different. And I was viewed a little bit as a threat. I was viewed a little bit as having pointy elbows, maybe because I was one of the few women and trying to get stuff done. And I had that work ethic from Australia. So I had to adapt to that and like take a few punches and adjust the perception of me there. And then when I came to the US, it's kind of the opposite. That's exactly what they want. They want fast, get stuff done, move fast, break things. Don't they say that? I don't know. And that's been terrific. And that the risk appetite and everything here has been very enabling, let's say. Yeah. I still work with the UK, but again, it comes back to that adjusting and adapting based on who's in the room and who you need to get the money from, essentially.
Yes. I imagine, Naomi, you come across that a bit with the different companies that you're speaking to as they're entering the market and so on.
Yes, that's definitely something I speak to companies about all the time, actually, because I think we have a tendency to just assume that English-speaking countries are going to be very similar to what we're used to in Australia. And it's one of the biggest mistakes you can make, actually, as a company that's looking to expand into the US. You really have to think about the cultural differences that exist. And it can be basic things like spelling. I've had clients that I've sent, documents to that have said, I can't believe that a lawyer has sent me a document with spelling errors in it. And I've had to explain to them, no, we spell differently in Australia, and this is for an Australian audience. So it's little things like that that can end up, ruining relationships if you don't anticipate them. I think, it is one of the biggest issues that companies really need to be thinking about as part of their overall US market strategy, for sure. The other thing I would say is, and it really is very specific to your particular industry or what you're looking to do here in the US. But for me, when I first thought about moving to the US, I was just another lawyer. It's a very saturated market. There's a lot of lawyers in the US. And I realized very quickly that if I wanted to have real success here, I had to find my niche. Why would a US company decide to to hire me, essentially? Or why would they want to use my services and not the services of a lawyer in the US? And so that's ultimately how I ended up. I found a gap in the market. I realized that there was no one at the time doing what I now do, which is assisting companies to bridge this gap around market entry. But that's one of the best tips I can give anyone that is looking to have real success here in the US. I think, there's so much opportunity. Find your niche, work on that. Don't give up. For every 100 no's, you might end up with one yes, and that's all you need to keep going.
Yeah, great advice. I think go on, Neeti, sorry.
I'll add one more quick thing because Naomi mentioned it. Some of the mentoring that I'm doing through Australia and even outside, one of the key differences, I think, between Australia and maybe even the UK and the US is very metrics driven in the US. And a lot of organizations, as they're transitioning or expanding or growing in the US market, have to keep that in mind because sometimes the cultural difference comes across because it's how you measure success and how you talk about it and how you spend money and how you talk about that as an organization, and how specific they can get from a metrics aspect compared to other nations. And that's something that's, I think, served very well from an innovation perspective and an entrepreneurship perspective, but it takes some getting used to. It comes across very challenging in an organizational environment if you're not familiar with it.
Yeah, excellent point. So shifting gears a little bit now, I'm interested in talking to you all about technology. Obviously, AI is very topical, but what role you see technology might play in the advancement of women in different fields? Perhaps, Neeti, did you want to have a
Yeah, I can go first because I have a lot to say about this. Automation.
Strap in, everyone.
And the reason I have a lot to say about it, I'll come back to, but Automation Anywhere is a AI automation platform. We are an agentic process automation platform. And the reason I say that is because this technology is used across all verticals and all companies and all regions of the world. And that gives us kind of a bird's eye view of what's happening in organizations in different verticals using AI. And the thing that comes across to me and why I'm so passionate about this subject is I believe we have a very small window of opportunity to bring women up, by leaps and bounds versus what we have seen in the past. And AI relies on so many data sets. Doesn't matter which industry you're working in. These data sets, unfortunately, in a lot of cases, and I can give you a couple of examples, are very male dominated. So the products and services that will come out of these data sets will be more suitable for men than it will be for women. And so this window of opportunity that I'm talking about is if we can get more women into the digital economy, into the digital workplace, then their data sets will be captured. And these data sets will then feed the next level of products and services. To give you a couple of quick examples, in healthcare, for example, we have heard from multiple, drug companies, pharmaceutical companies, that a lot of the data sets that are used for creating drugs have a very male-dominated data set. Not only male-dominated, they're also extremely regional, right? So there's a lot more Western data sets than there are Eastern or Southern data sets. What happened with that was let's take Tylenol, paracetamol, right? For example, even the dosage for that is based off of a male body that's definitely not the same psych or biological profile as me. For example, I'm 5'2", I'm brown, I'm a woman, fit all the three segments of a data set that are not represented. And so even the dosage of paracetamol is for a male body. Now, in paracetamol, maybe it doesn't matter as much. In cancer drugs, it might, and so forth, right? So if we can get the data sets to become a little bit more broad and have a lot more women participate in digital health, for example, then those data sets hopefully will take care of, what's coming out next. And can we get customized medicine? And can we get customized delivery of that medicine and so forth, right? So just, a plethora of verticals and industries that we are purview to, and it could be financial services, it can be healthcare, it can be education. My favorite example is the car companies. The seatbelt was invented, I don't know, 30, 40 years ago. Definitely not built for the female body, and definitely not built for short people. And if you sit in a car, even today, I've seen women constantly, trying to pull the belt out a little bit every few minutes. 40 years in, how many women drive cars today in the world? And we're still stuck with a very old legacy delivery of the seatbelt. Now, put that in AI's perspective. I do not want the world to be stuck with data sets that do not belong to women, especially women and a lot of other minorities and regional people. But we can't have the next generation of products and services catered to them. It has to be catered to a broader set. And women especially, this is why I put it out there a lot, like go and engage with AI. Go use ChatGPT on a daily basis. Talk to your doctor in digital data sets. What else can we do to get ourselves into that ecosystem? Because unfortunately for us, and fortunately, I guess, we have a chance to bridge it. But unfortunately, if we don't, we'll be stuck with it for a long, long time.
Wow, that's really insightful. To be honest, I hadn't even thought about that until you raised it. So I am one of the people who engage with ChatGPT and the various AI platforms. So hopefully that's helping. But it's just, it's really interesting. I don't know if anyone else had any thoughts or comments on technology or that point in particular that you wanted to build on.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I don't think that AI will ever replace lawyers, but I think that lawyers that don't learn to work with AI will eventually be replaceable. I think, I'm incredibly fortunate to work for a firm that invests a huge amount of money and time in developing technology that will make the legal services industry better for our clients. It's incredibly important. We also have an AI specific team to advise clients around AI issues. And, it is the future. You've either got to get on board or recognize that you are going to become obsolete, because clients are demanding this now. And I think that's true in a lot of areas.
And are there any other aspects of technology where you think it can either help or hinder women, the use of technology? Are there any other areas that, aside from AI, that you think? I know, Yogi, you talked when we were chatting prior to this a little bit about how kind of data and I guess technology and things like that talk. And so they're almost, aside from the example you've given, Neeti, they're almost gender agnostic in some ways.
They are, yeah. I did say that. I was thinking where I was, my day-to-day work is with companies who are working in R&D for hopefully future treatments and curative treatments for patients. And almost all of the companies, in fact, all of the companies I represent do have an AI component now, because it's very accelerating in various areas of drug development, patient selection, and even just uncovering new biology, frankly. Generative AI being used to map out the receptome, and you hear about the protein folding and protein atlases that have been discovered through DeepMind and what have you. So that's one thing that's extremely exciting about how to have a very positive impact for, future healthcare. The second piece is with my companies, most definitely there is a lot of data, scientific data, and it is exactly what it is, right? There are different ways to analyze it, but at the end of the day, it is a very democratic way to present the potential success or advancement of the products that we're developing. And having said that, even in that environment where you have a hypothesis, you have the data to support it, it is 100% science. To a future question that's about to come up, it's still very difficult for female founders to get their companies funded, just saying. But yeah, going back to the merit and the data, it is very helpful in my industry, most definitely.
And to Neeti's point, if that data is heavily influenced by not having the right balance of inputs from women or people who are sort of smaller represented groups, does that have an impact?
Well, it's a different, Neeti was talking to a different set of data sets, which was imported data and I guess however they sort of come up with algorithms and such for those apps. The data within the biotech industry is very science-based. And actually in early stage, it's mainly animals, if I'm honest, before it even gets into the human. But now the way we are designing human trials is very more representative of different cultures, genders, and etc. So it is true there is a significant historical lag of a lot of aspects of healthcare, which is still based on I guess it was the military male pool that was used for a lot of these studies back in the day.
Yeah, so that's interesting. So we should see that evolve, it sounds like, from what you're saying, which is fantastic. That's really good news. So we're heading toward the last question, but before we wrap up, I just want to remind everyone, if you've got any questions, could you just pop them in the Q&A section so that we can ensure that you've got this amazing, talented panel in front of you and they can have the opportunity to respond to any questions you might have. So if you can just throw them in the Q&A and then we'll get to those at the end. So I just wanted to, I guess, finalise our conversation a bit today with leaving those who are listening in with something that's sort of a call to action. So I'm really keen to understand just a piece of advice that you might give to young women from Australia or Australians in the US that are aspiring to build a career in the United States or just move, their way through the culture and the work environment. Is there one piece of advice that you would share? Naomi, would you like to start with that?
Yeah, I mean, I touched on this before, but I think you've really got to take chances and be persistent. Keep going, keep reaching out to people, take as many meetings as you possibly can. There is huge opportunity here. And I think Americans are really good at, meeting people, sharing information with people. I've certainly found that throughout my last, 15, 16 years here in the US, anytime I reached out to people, it was very rare that I got someone, saying they wouldn't meet with me or no response. Most people are willing to meet you for a coffee. Take those opportunities, because you just don't know where they might lead. You have to develop a bit of a thick skin, though, because you may walk out of a meeting and think that, oh my goodness, I am going to do the best deal of my life here. I just had the greatest meeting. And then you don't hear from the person again. It's a very, very common story in the US, and particularly in some markets like LA, where, they can be tough markets. You've got to just recognize that is part of the culture here, and not be disheartened by that, and just keep going, because it really is the only way to have real success here, in my opinion. The other thing I would say is we have to think about the climate in the US right now. We're in a period of time when there's a strong sense of nationalism in a lot of countries, including the US. And I think it's important to understand that, because there are companies that are making choices based on that at the moment. So I think that, we need to recognise that we are Australian, we are foreigners here in the US. And I think this really comes back to finding your niche and finding a way that you can explain to companies here how you can really add value. And I think that's more important than ever before right now, given the political climate. But there is huge opportunity here in the US. There really is. It is a culture that really celebrates successes, and it really does, celebrate those who are willing to work hard. And so, despite challenges that may be existing right now that perhaps weren't there when some of us were looking to, create our careers in the US, I think there's definitely still amazing opportunities if you are prepared to, work hard and commit to the process.
Great advice. Neeti, what about you?
Right. I agree with everything Naomi said. I would say, two aspects that I would like to bring out. One is have a lot of gratitude to the women who brought us this far, because we have come really, really far. I mean, just from when I started Automation Anywhere to now, I can't tell you how different it is. And I think also understand the role we play to take it forward. And sometimes, I don't know, I feel like, some women need more of a hand to help them up. And it's on us to kind of be that voice of reason and that voice with them, to bring them to the next level. So just, that gratitude and that paying it forward aspect of, I think women need it even more now than maybe 20 years ago in some ways. And in some ways, we're so much further because of the women who came before us. The other aspect is, I'll go back to what I said, we're living in the Renaissance, we're living in a different industrial revolution. This is our opportunity. The more we engage, the more women will come forward, and the more women will be represented across everything that's happening to our world in the next 5 to 10 years. So this is definitely not the time to sit back in any way as a woman. I think just be there, be that voice, be representing your species really, and be that voice really, because I shudder to think what will come out of this if we're not showing up enough.
Fantastic. I think one of the things I think a lot about is mentoring, and I do quite a bit of mentoring, and was recently on the board of Victorian Chamber of Commerce, and we have this kind of chamber change program. And it's fascinating to me how many women who come into that program that I would look at on paper as being incredibly competent and capable businesswomen. But when you actually sit down and share your story, which is what we do, and sort of coach and mentor them, they're really grateful for the support, the guidance, and I think there's, you know, an element of lack of self-belief. And so that opportunity to support each other, lift each other up, it's just so incredibly important. So I couldn't agree with you more. Thanks, Neeti.
Helen,
And
can I
yeah,
just add something
sure.
to that? Just very quickly, I really think it's important to try and find male mentors as well, because
Absolutely.
until we are, you know, have a seat at the table, we really need men to be champion for us as well, right? And to be raising our names in those rooms that we may not be in. So I just wanted to add that too. I think that's really, really critical.
Yeah, great point. In fact, one of the things we typically say in that program is that there's no specific job role or performer for how a mentor looks. It's really about the person that inspires you, that you can learn from, and that you feel you can have a good conversation with. That's the criteria. So male, female, it's not gender specific. Great point. Thank you. Hilda.
Yes. Coming after all of that, I agree with everything and reiterate all of the above. And then I'd just say, look, it's really fun. It's really fun. Having an international career, getting this far, and at the other end of the journey, it's just so wonderful to have your niche and your expertise and be able to have an impact and facilitate your area of business and such. And it's so worth it. Like, don't give up. There will be lots of times where you're encouraged to not take a seat at the table or, you know, to try something else. Like, isn't that a nice career over there? Why don't you do that kind of thing? Don't. It's really fun over here. It's really fun having a voice at the table, and it's a bit of a game, and you do have to adapt, and it's worth it. And then just to reiterate, honestly, all those conversations are so valuable. Just having coffees with so many people for no reason, and it turns out there's usually a path forward, and it's worth it. Yeah.
Yeah, that network, right? It's incredibly valuable.
And you learn a lot from it as well. You learn a lot about how people think and how they act and what they're doing, which isn't evident at all externally or through LinkedIn. It's when you have a coffee with them and you understand their perspective and how they're approaching your industry or your problem or you know, the career. It's just, there's so much more knowledge that can come out of a 30-minute interaction that's helpful for the next one. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much, all three of you, for giving up your time. I know you're incredibly busy and you're actually all in different parts of the globe, as am I in Melbourne. So making yourselves available, it's been a fabulous conversation. We do have a couple of questions, and just a reminder, if you can get into that Q&A and throw some more in. But I do have one that I wanted to start with, and it's actually for yourself, Neeti. What would you say to those who are concerned that AI will take their jobs? And that's from Vicky Forrest.
Hi, Vicky. I think I don't agree with it, and I'll tell you why. I think whenever there is a significant technology movement in history, we have seen this. Yes, some jobs will be transitioned out. There will be things that we don't need to do anymore because the new technology will completely take it over. But it's a transition. I mean, we don't have telephone operators anymore. We don't have people who did what they did, 50 years ago or 60 years ago, and we're better off as a society for it. So to that extent, I think it's more a transition than anything else. But yes, what's important is the reskilling and upskilling. I think we really need to kind of work with folks to help them transition better than we have, traditionally or historically. We can help people get into more AI jobs. A lot of AI jobs are transitionary, so you need a subject matter expert. Give you an example, we're not going to see doctors go away, but maybe, and I'm hopeful, we'll see doctors spending all their time talking to the patient instead of filling in 20 forms. so there will be transition, and yes, unfortunately, some jobs, hopefully, that are, I say this jokingly, but I don't mean it as a joke. We were not put on Earth to transfer data from one system to another. This is just not human in its capability. So if AI can handle that intelligently and better, then hopefully we have more knowledge work coming out, more creative work coming out. So I think it's going to be a transition. I'm an optimist. I think that they say that we will lose something like 2 to 3 million different job profiles because of AI, but we will gain about 4 or 5 million new job profiles. So it is that transition that we have to, I think, deal with empathetically and well, and we'll be better off as a society.
Thank you. That's very helpful perspective on it. And I think, Naomi, you mentioned, I don't think AI is going to take over from lawyers, but did you have anything else you wanted to add to that, in relation to that question?
No, I mean, just as I said, I don't think it, very similar to Neeti, I think it'll create other opportunities. So the important thing is just to try and, upskill, reskill, look at other areas. Certainly there will be some job elimination. I mean, it's one of the things that we are working actively with our clients on is planning for that type of future where there will be some jobs that are eliminated as a result, or not just eliminated, but that will certainly change. But with that comes immense opportunity as well. And I think that's what, we need to tap into and recognize and just plan for, because it is coming. And like Neeti said, I mean, we've seen many examples of this through history. I'm sure there'll be something else after AI that we'll have to plan for. But, I don't think it's something we need to be fearful of. I think we, and that comes with understanding, right? Learning.
Can I add
Absolutely.
one thing to it? It's just like how we can hopefully, uplift women faster than we were doing before if we engage with these new technologies. I think it's also an opportunity for us to bridge the wealth gap that has been created over the last 40, 50 years. Because technology moves so fast, there were pockets of regionally or the global south, for example. It's an opportunity really to, if we reskill fast enough, we have an opportunity to bridge it, which we didn't before. So if, again, we need to do it right, yes, and we need to do it mindfully, but it's an opportunity, in my opinion, versus the negative aspect of it.
Yeah, so that importance of engaging as opposed to stepping back. Yeah, great. I have another question, and I'll open it to anyone who's interested. What tips do you have for getting over self-doubt? This is a good one about the imposter syndrome, which I'm quite familiar with.
I can go first. It's a little controversial maybe, but you don't have to get over it. You just have to deal with it. I think, as you experience and as you mature and as you engage in the workplace, it does become less, at least in your subject matter areas. At least that's been my experience. But to some extent, it does not go away. At least it hasn't for me yet fully. There are areas when you're doing it for the first time, unlike my male counterparts, I don't go in with that swag of, I got this. There is a little bit of self-doubt, and you want to do it and you want to lead maybe, or whatever it is you're planning to do. But I've learned, it's like public speaking. You learn to be okay with the feeling. That feeling should not define the work, is how I deal with it.
I actually had a psychologist tell me once that self-doubt is a sign of a highly intelligent person, because ultimately they realise that they have conscious incompetence. They realise what they don't know. So, that there is a lot of truth to that, I think, in terms of the person who is oblivious to the fact that they don't know anything and just kind of roll in, versus someone actually being aware that there's a skill gap, but that skill gap can actually be closed, right, after. And so it's not about getting over it, it's just dealing with it and acknowledging that feeling. So, That's certainly something that
because
I
you don't
would
want to waste your energy fighting it is
No.
how I look at it. You know,
Yeah.
you want to kind of deal with it and say it's all right and I'll still get it done, and
Yeah.
have faith in your own abilities in that sense.
Yeah, I think self-doubt is connected to a fear of failure. And you have to recognize that to have any kind of success in life, we have to take risks, right? And we've got to stop fearing failure because, I mean, if you look at, entrepreneurs that have had huge success in their life, they all talk about how they had failures first, right? And that they learned from those failures. And then that's what ultimately drove them to the success that they had. And so I think you've got to change the mindset around failure and think about, failure in a positive way and using those experiences to drive you forward.
That's sort of very much linked to the growth mindset and making sure that, you're constantly recognising that there's an opportunity to learn as opposed to a failure. So it's that reframing that you're talking about there. Yeah.
Yeah, don't make the same mistake. Don't make the same mistake twice. Just make it.
Yes.
Yeah. Excellent. Yoda, did you have anything else you wanted to?
Yeah, I mean, it depends. When I was younger and I had self-doubt, it was a little bit, it slowed me down, but I still always had that desire to get to that next stage. And so I sort of fought through it. And now I think about this, I probably still have it. But what I find that is when I still go ahead and do it, it's fine. I'm still successful. And so I think what I found, especially in the corporate environment, every time I got promoted to a new role or had more responsibility and got more senior, I'd look around and I'm like, oh, it wasn't that dramatically mysterious and hard. It really, if you just give it a go, you're probably going to be fine is the answer there, especially as you continue to get expert at your career and do your homework and, try to be competent. But actually, nobody's perfect. That's what you find. And generally, at each level that you get to, you find that you're really quite good. So why not?
I'm sure you're really quite good, is what I would say. Well, I think that's a perfect spot to wrap up today's session. I think we did have one more question. I've probably got time for just one more that popped in, and just some feedback for the panel. Really appreciate the rich and honest insights. So thank you, and that's down to all of you. The question is, if you're in a room of men and you're experiencing negative behaviour that might be gendered, for example, criticism or being talked over, how would you deal with it diplomatically? Quick one-liner. Any suggestions?
Call it out. You can do it in a joking way, but that's how I've dealt with those situations. And I've been in many situations like that, but don't let it go. Don't let it go. Do it in a mocking kind of way, but absolutely call it out, because the reality is that person's probably going to be very embarrassed when you do that.
I've got a different tact, but that's because I'm trying to get checks written by these people. But in those situations, I just try to disrupt it a little bit. I may get up and sort of just change the dynamics of the room, or take a tangent with the conversation or something and try to steer the narrative and take a little bit more control over the room. But for me, I do have to allow these people to have their ego met. And so I find there are various tactics to make sure, or to help steer the narrative and get back to the topic that's important. But I mean, it's very scenario based, isn't it? Case by case. But yeah.
I've done a little bit of all of the above. I guess every situation is different. So sometimes, yes, don't let it go 100%. I think this is one of the areas where I've found, especially if it's it's the same team and sometimes it's repetitive, having a sponsor, somebody whom you can kind of work outside of the meeting and say, look, this happens consistently. Can you back me up? And having, once they say it twice, then all the battles disappear. So it really depends on the room and the type of people. And sometimes having that sponsor has helped me, because sometimes you just, you can shout till the cows come home, and this just, it just, nothing happens. It's repetitive behavior. But I never let it go. To Naomi's point, I don't sit on it. I don't know why that continues. We need a room full of men we can talk to, but yeah.
Those mentors, right? That's important. So.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much. I know we're coming to time, so appreciate the vulnerability, the honesty, the rich dialogue, as mentioned by one of the people who popped a question in, and your time, because I know you're very busy women. So thank you so much. I just wanted to finish up with a little plug for the Chamber to say that the value of the Australian American Chamber membership is getting this quality of women on a call and being able to have this conversation. So if you're not a member today, then please do look at joining. And thank you all very much for your participation, the input, the questions, and the dialogue with our three incredible panelists in Neeti, Naomi, and Yelda. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Thank you, Helen.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.